Darkness, rain hammering sheet metal like automatic fire. The radio crackled through static, a voice tight with confusion cutting through the storm. "We have a situation, sniper on the roof. 12 operators pinned down, 0 shots fired, repeat, 0 casualties." The voice shifted, lower now, older, command weight behind every word. "Who the hell shows mercy to their hunters?" Thermal imaging flickered across a tactical display. 12 heat signatures huddled behind vehicles, weapons drawn but useless. The crosshairs of a high-powered scope drifted across each shape with surgical precision. Head, chest, head, chest. A rhythm of death that never came. The camera panned across rain-slicked concrete to a wall behind the pinned operators. 4 words carved deep into cinderblock. Fresh. Deliberate. "You were spared. Ask WHY." The scope's reticle settled on the message, held there, then lifted toward the sky as thunder rolled across the Pacific. Cut to black. White text appeared against the void. 48 hours earlier. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the armory at Naval Base Coronado, that particular frequency that lived in every military building across the world. Constant, forgettable, background noise to the rhythm of preparation and routine. Vaughn knelt beside a Barrett M82 sniper rifle, her hands moving with the kind of precision that came from somewhere deeper than training. Gray maintenance coveralls hung loose on her frame, hair pulled back in a tight functional bun. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing that drew attention. She worked in silence, the kind of silence that wasn't empty but full, listening silence. The barrel came apart under her touch with 3 economical motions. Check the rifling, inspect the chamber, test the extractor spring tension with a fingertip calibrated to measure pressure in grams. Her left hand reached for the cleaning rod without looking, found it exactly where it should be, muscle memory that didn't require thought. The door at the far end of the armory swung open, heavy boots on concrete, the sharp laugh of men who owned their space. Garrett Hayes entered first, 6'4", 250 pounds of dense muscle and easy confidence. They called him Tank, not because he was slow but because nothing stopped him. He carried a coffee cup in one hand, steam rising into the cold morning air. "Morning, Ghost," he said without really looking at her. Kira didn't glance up. Her voice came out flat, professional, forgettable. "Morning." Tank paused at the coffee station, dumping 3 sugars into the cup. "You always hear this early. Rifles don't clean themselves." He laughed. The sound bounced off steel lockers and concrete walls. "Damn right they don't. Keep up the good work." He walked past her toward the ready room. His shadow passed over her hands, but his eyes never registered what those hands were actually doing. The way her fingers moved across the bolt carrier group, counting coils on the recoil spring by touch, testing headspace without a gauge because her hands had become the gauge. She was invisible to him. That was the point. The Barrett went back together in half the time it took to disassemble, every pin seated with a soft click that rang clear in the quiet space. She set the rifle back in its rack, wiped her hands on a rag and moved to the next weapon. An M4 carbine with a note tagged to the carrying handle, trigger group sticking, needs adjustment. Kira had the rifle stripped in 90 seconds, laid the parts out in perfect order on the work mat, trigger assembly, hammer spring, disconnector. The problem was obvious. Someone had installed the wrong weight hammer spring. Easy fix. She reached for the parts drawer. The door slammed open. This time it wasn't casual. This time it carried weight. Commander Ethan Cross strode into the armory with a phone pressed to his ear, his voice sharp with barely controlled anger. 42 years old, 20 years of service carved into the lines around his eyes. A man who'd earned every scar and didn't need to prove it anymore. I don't care if he's a 2-star general, I run this base. If he wants to inspect my teams, he goes through proper channels first. He stopped mid-stride, his eyes locked onto Kira. She was holding the Barrett again, had moved it from the rack to the maintenance bench while he was distracted. The suppressor lay beside it, partially disassembled. The phone lowered from his ear. The voice on the other end kept talking, but Cross wasn't listening anymore. Who authorized you to touch that weapon? Kira looked up. Her expression didn't change. Calm, neutral, the face of someone who'd learned to disappear in plain sight. No one, sir. The barrel was corroded. It's logged for maintenance. Cross's jaw tightened. He moved closer, each step deliberate. That's a classified suppression system. You don't log it for maintenance. You report it directly to the armorer, and you sure as hell don't disassemble it yourself. She stood slowly, not challenging, just rising to equal footing. With respect, Commander, corroded barrels don't wait for paperwork. This rifle fires subsonic rounds at extended range. If that suppressor fails, it compromises the shooter's position. That gets people killed. The silence that followed her words had texture. Wait. Cross studied her face, really looked at her for the first time, saw past the coveralls and the pulled-back hair, saw something in the way she stood, shoulders square, weight balanced, the micro-adjustments of someone who'd spent time in a rifle scope. Put it down, he said quietly, now. Kira's hands moved to comply but stopped halfway. The extractor pin is already out, sir. If I set it down now without replacing it, the spring tension will. I said put it down. She did, set the rifle gently on the padded mat, suppressor beside it, parts arranged in disassembly order. Then she stepped back, hands at her sides, waiting. The door opened again. 2 more people entered. Jordan Wells, a chief warrant officer with 15 years in special operations and a reputation for being the best close-quarters combat instructor on the West Coast. Behind her, Master Chief Sam Briggs, 53 years old, salt and pepper beard, eyes that had seen more than most people could imagine and remembered all of it. Wells took in the scene with a glance. Sir, General Cross arrives in 4 hours. We need the final gear inspection. At the name, Kira's hands moved, a fractional twitch, just her left index finger curling slightly then releasing. It lasted maybe half a second. Sam Briggs saw it. His eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, but he said nothing. Cross turned toward Wells, his irritation finding a new target. Ms. Vaughn here seems to think she knows more about weapons maintenance than my certified armorers. Wells looked at Kira for the first time, took in the maintenance uniform, the anonymous face, the complete stillness. Is that right? Kira didn't respond, just waited. Cross made a decision. The kind of decision that came from ego mixed with curiosity mixed with the need to reassert control in his own space. Field strip challenge. M4 carbine, blindfolded. If she completes it in under 5 minutes, she stays. If she fails, she's off this base by noon. Wells raised an eyebrow. Sir, that's... I know what it is, Chief. Get a rifle and a timer. Kira reached into her pocket, pulled out a black cotton cloth, the kind used for lens cleaning. Without a word, she tied it around her eyes, double knot at the back. No hesitation, no request for practice time or warm up. The movement was too smooth, too automatic, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Sam Briggs leaned against the wall, arms crossed. His expression gave nothing away, but his focus was absolute. Wells brought an M4 from the rack, set it on the table. Commander, I really think. Timer starts when I say go. Cross pulled out his phone, opened the stopwatch app. His thumb hovered over the screen. Kira stood facing the table. Her breathing slowed. Deep inhale through the nose. Slow exhale through the mouth. The kind of breathing that lowered heart rate and steadied hands. Go! The sound of the safety clicking off was unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Her hands found the rifle without fumbling. Left hand on the magazine well, right hand on the charging handle. Pull. Lock. Magazine release. The mag dropped into her waiting palm before it could hit the table. Click, upper and lower receiver separated. Slide, bolt carrier group extracted. The parts came out in perfect sequence. Firing pin, retaining pin, bolt, cam pin. Each piece set down in exact order on the table, spaced evenly by touch alone. Her fingers moved across the buffer spring like reading braille, counting coils. 14, standard weight, no damage. Tank Hayes had wandered back from the ready room, coffee forgotten. He stood watching with his mouth slightly open. She can't see anything, he whispered to Wells. How does she know where? Muscle memory, Sam said quietly. Not to Tank, to himself. That's not from reading manuals. 2 minutes gone. The rifle lay in pieces. Kira's hands paused over the parts, just for a moment. Her head tilted slightly like she was listening to something only she could hear. Then reassembly began. It was faster than the disassembly. Her hands moved with absolute confidence. No hesitation, no checking, buffer tube, buffer spring, lower receiver, trigger group seated with a solid click, upper receiver mated, charging handle, bolt carrier group slid home with the distinctive sound of metal on metal finding its proper place. Magazine inserted, charging handle racked, the bolt locked forward. Her hand found the safety, clicked it on. Then she lowered the rifle to the table and stepped back. Clear. Cross looked down at his phone. The numbers glowed in the fluorescent light. 5 minutes 32 seconds. He'd expected failure, expected fumbling and excuses, expected to prove his point. Instead, he was looking at a time that would make most of his operators sweat. Wells picked up the rifle, checked it. Function tested the trigger, inspected the bolt. It's perfect, she said. The words came out reluctant, like admitting defeat. Kira untied the blindfold, folded it neatly, put it back in her pocket. Her expression hadn't changed. No pride, no satisfaction, just that same neutral calm. Sam Briggs pushed off the wall, moved closer. His voice was low, careful. Where'd you serve, Miss Vaughn? She met his eyes. I didn't. That's a lie. Believe what you want, Chief. Cross felt something shift in his chest. Irritation mixing with something else. Respect maybe, or concern, he couldn't tell which. All right, he said, you can stay, but I want to see if those hands can actually shoot. He turned to Wells. Get the range ready, 600 meters, 5 targets. Kira's voice cut in, quiet but firm. I'm maintenance, sir, not a shooter. Humor me. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. Yes, sir. The Pacific wind cut across the outdoor range like a blade. Cold, salt-heavy. The kind of wind that made precision shooting a calculated gamble between skill and patience. 5 steel targets stood 600 meters downrange. Small, barely visible in the morning light, designed for advanced marksman training. Kira knelt beside the shooting bench. A Barrett M82 lay on sandbags in front of her. The same rifle she'd been cleaning 3 hours ago. She adjusted the bipod legs with small, precise movements, checked the scope mounting, ran her hand along the barrel to feel for heat differential from the sun. Behind her, a crowd had gathered. Word had spread fast. Maintenance tech challenged by the commander. Blindfold test passed. Now this. Tank, Jordan, Sam, and 6 other SEALs lined up to watch, some skeptical, some curious, all of them waiting to see her fail. Cross stood to her right, arms crossed. 5 shots, 5 targets. Any misses, this conversation ends and you go back to cleaning rifles. Kira didn't respond. She settled into position behind the scope, cheek welled firm against the stock. Right hand wrapped around the grip with her index finger resting along the trigger guard. Not on the trigger yet, just resting. Her breathing slowed again, that same controlled rhythm, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Her eyes tracked the mirage shimmer downrange, reading the wind through the heat waves rising off the desert floor. 30 seconds passed, a minute she didn't move. Tank leaned toward Jordan. What's she waiting for? Wind to settle, Sam answered before Jordan could. His voice carried quiet authority. She's reading the pattern, waiting for the lull. The wind flag at the 600-meter line shifted, dropped, held still for maybe 3 seconds. Kira's finger moved to the trigger. The Barrett roared. The recoil pushed back against the sandbags, but her body absorbed it naturally, shoulders loose, spine aligned. The way someone moves when they've fired 10,000 rounds and learned to flow with the weapon instead of fighting it. Downrange, the first steel target sang, a clear high note that carried back on the wind. Hit. She worked the bolt, smooth, economical, chambered the next round without lifting her eye from the scope. Second shot. The sound rolled across the empty range like thunder. Hit. Third shot, same rhythm, same precision. Hit. Jordan Wells shifted her weight. The skepticism in her expression started to crack. Okay, she muttered. That's actually impressive. Fourth shot. Hit. Kira's hand moved to the scope. Her fingers found the adjustment knobs, started to turn them. Cross frowned. What are you doing? She didn't answer, just kept turning. Windage, elevation. Then her hands moved to the mounting rings, started loosening them. Tank's eyes went wide. Wait, is she? The scope came off. Kira set it gently on the mat beside her, picked up the rifle, settled back into position. She was going to shoot with iron sights. At 600 meters. That's impossible, Wells said, not loud, just a statement of fact. Sam Briggs said nothing, just watched. Kira's eye lined up with the rear sight, a tiny aperture designed for close range work. At 600 meters, the target was barely a speck. The front sight post completely covered it. Shooting at that distance with irons wasn't marksmanship. It was educated guessing mixed with prayer. Unless you'd done it before, under worse conditions, when lives depended on it. Her breathing stopped at the bottom of the exhale, the moment between heartbeats, the still point where the body becomes a platform instead of a person. The Barrett spoke one last time. The round crossed 600 meters in roughly 1.2 seconds, fought through wind shear and gravity and the chaos of atmosphere, found its target. The fifth steel plate rang like a church bell. Perfect hit, center mass. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of realization, of assumptions crumbling, of questions that didn't have easy answers. Wells stepped forward to check the spotting scope, confirmed what everyone had heard. 5 for 5, all center mass. She turned to look at Kira. Nobody shoots like that with iron sights. Nobody. Kira stood, set the rifle carefully on the bench, removed her ear protection. Her movements were calm, methodical. She could have been filing paperwork. Sam Briggs moved closer, close enough that only she could hear him. That's not SEAL training. That's not even Delta. That's agency-level tradecraft. She met his eyes, I wouldn't know, Chief. Yes, you would. He paused, studied her face. You've got the Hathcock scar. Her right hand moved unconsciously to her left knuckle, a thin white line across the first joint. The kind of scar you got when a rifle bolt slammed shut on your hand during rapid manipulation drills. Carlos Hathcock, the legendary Marine sniper, had the same scar. So did every precision shooter who'd trained to the point of blood. Old injury, she said. From what? Carelessness. Sam smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You're not careless, Miss Vaughn, that's the problem. Cross approached, his expression unreadable. The irritation from earlier had transformed into something more complex. Suspicion mixed with grudging respect mixed with the uncomfortable realization that he'd just seen something he couldn't explain. Who are you really? He asked. Kira looked at him, then at the others. Tank with his mouth still hanging open, Jordan with her arms crossed tight, Sam with those knowing eyes, all of them waiting for an answer that would make sense of what they'd just witnessed. I'm maintenance, she said quietly, just maintenance. She walked away from the range, boots crunching on gravel, back straight, pace unhurried, not running, not hiding, just leaving. The crowd parted to let her through. The same men who'd laughed at her hours ago now stepping aside with something close to reverence. Cross watched until she disappeared through the armory door. Then he turned to Sam. Find out who she is, everything. Background, service record, why she's here. I want answers by end of day. Sam nodded slowly. You won't like what I find. Why do you say that? Because people that good at disappearing usually have a reason. Night settled over Coronado with the particular darkness that came from marine layer fog rolling in off the Pacific. The kind of darkness that swallowed sound and turned familiar spaces into foreign territory. Commander Ethan Cross sat alone in his office. The only light came from his computer monitor, casting blue-white shadows across his face. He'd been staring at the screen for 20 minutes, at the file that should have answered his questions but only created new ones. Personnel file, Vaughn Kira M. Civilian contractor, maintenance technician level 2. Security clearance, secret. The photo showed her face, same woman, same neutral expression, but something about it felt staged, like a passport photo designed to be forgotten. Employment start date, February 2022, 2 years and 10 months ago. Assignment history, base maintenance pool, Feb 2022, Jun 2024. Armory specialist assignment, Jul 2024 present. 3 months in the armory, that explained it. Before February 2022, nothing. Previous employment, redacted. Education, redacted. Next of kin, redacted. Emergency contact, redacted. Cross scrolled down. Every field that should have contained basic biographical information had been replaced with that single word. Redacted. Not blank. Not classified. Redacted. Someone had gone through this file and surgically removed her past. He clicked on the security clearance link. A new window opened. Background investigation status, completed. Investigating agency, redacted. Adjudication authority, deputy director level. Cross stopped scrolling. Deputy director level adjudication for a level 2 maintenance contract. That made no sense. Deputy directors didn't waste time on janitors and technicians. They dealt with covert operations and compartmented programs. Black budget work that didn't officially exist. He tried his command override, typed in his access code, hit enter. The screen flickered. A red banner appeared across the top. Access DNID. Authorization required. Deputy Director or above. Inquiry logged. Cross leaned back in his chair, stared at the screen. A maintenance worker on a Navy base should not have CIA-level protection, should not have background files that required Deputy Director access to view, should not exist in a bureaucratic black hole where every piece of her history before 2 years ago had been erased. Unless she wasn't a maintenance worker at all. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Sam Briggs entered without waiting for permission, closed the door behind him, stood there with his hands in his pockets and that expression that meant he'd found something. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Cross said. "Maybe I have." Sam pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. "I pulled her file, same roadblocks you hit, I'm guessing. Deputy Director level protection, complete background blackout. You ever seen that before?" "Once. Afghanistan, 2019. We worked with a CIA paramilitary team for about 3 weeks. Never learned their real names, never saw their faces clearly. They showed up, did their job, disappeared. When I tried to pull their records later, same thing, redacted across the board." Cross felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You think she's agency?" Was, past tense. Active operators don't work maintenance on Navy bases. "So what is she?" Sam was quiet for a moment. His fingers drummed against his knee, a nervous habit he'd picked up somewhere over 25 years of service. "I made a call, friend at Langley, owed me a favor from back in the day, asked him to run the name Vaughn through their system. And he hung up on me, then called back 10 minutes later from a secure line and told me to drop it. Said if I pushed any harder, people above my pay grade would get interested in why I was asking." The two men sat in silence. The hum of the computer fan was the only sound. Cross spoke first. "General Cross arrives in." He checked his watch. 3 hours. He specifically asked to meet her. By name. How does a 2-star general visiting for a routine inspection know the name of a maintenance tech who just transferred to armory duty 3 months ago? Sam's expression darkened. "Maybe it's not routine." "What do you mean?" "You said he was early, 3 hours ahead of schedule. No warning, he just showed up. That's not normal protocol for a VIP inspection." Cross thought about that, about his uncle arriving unannounced, about asking to meet Kira, about the way he'd smiled when he said it, like he knew a secret. "You think he's here for her specifically?" "I think we should ask her before he does." Cross stood, grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. "Where is she?" "Base housing. Apartment 2847, I already checked. Lights are on." They found Kira's apartment on the 2nd floor of a gray stucco building that looked like every other piece of military housing across the country. Functional, forgettable, designed to be temporary. Cross knocked, no answer. He knocked again, harder. The door opened. Kira stood in the doorway wearing sweatpants and a base issue t-shirt. Her hair was down now, longer than it looked when pulled back. She held a book in one hand, some paperback thriller with a torn cover. "Commander-Chief, it's late." Cross didn't apologize. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About who you really are." She looked at him for a long moment, then at Sam, then stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was sparse. No photos on the walls, no personal items on the shelves. A couch, a table, a small kitchenette with nothing on the counters. It looked like a place someone could leave in 10 minutes and not leave any trace behind. Cross noticed a laptop on the table. The screen was dark, but he could see the faint outline of encryption software running in the corner. Military grade, not civilian. How long have you known? Kira asked. She didn't sit down, just stood with her arms crossed, waiting. Known what? Cross asked. That I'm not just maintenance. Sam answered. Since the blindfold test, nobody moves like that without years of operator-level training. She nodded slowly. And you're here because General Cross is coming. How did you know his name? Cross asked. I never mentioned it in the armory. Chief Wells did, when she said he was arriving in 4 hours. Kira moved to the window, looked out at the darkened base. You want to know who I am? Fine, but you won't like the answer. Try me. She turned back to face them. The casual civilian disappeared. What replaced it was something harder, older. 5 years ago, I didn't exist. The person you're looking at was created by an agency that doesn't officially exist, working for people who make decisions you'll never hear about. CIA, Sam said. Close enough. She paused. I was part of a joint task force, operators embedded with military units for high-value target elimination. We didn't wear uniforms, didn't carry ID. If we died, our families got a flag and a story about a training accident. Cross felt the room get colder. What happened? We got sold. Our location, our mission parameters, everything. Handed over to the people we were hunting. 11 of us went in, 1 came back. The silence that followed was absolute. Who sold you? Sam asked quietly. Kira looked at Cross, held his eyes. Your uncle, General Vincent Cross, he was our mission coordinator. He knew where we'd be when we'd be there, how many of us were on the team, and he gave all of that to the enemy for $8 million. Cross felt like he'd been punched. That's impossible. Is it? How else would a 2-star general know that a random maintenance tech transferred to armory duty 3 months ago? How else would he show up 3 hours early with no warning? She moved closer. He's not here for an inspection, Commander. He's here for me, because I'm the only person left who knows what he did. If that's true, why didn't you run? Why stay here? Because I'm done running. Her voice was cold, hard. For 5 years I've been dead, living under a fake name, working jobs that don't matter, staying invisible. And then 3 weeks ago I got a message. Someone sent me proof. Photos of your uncle meeting with the same people who killed my team. Recent photos, dated 2 weeks ago. Sam's hand moved unconsciously toward his sidearm. What are you planning to do? Nothing. I'm not going to kill him if that's what you're asking. I just want him to see me alive. I want him to know I remember. I want him to spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. Cross's mind raced. His uncle, family, the man who'd gotten him interested in military service when he was 16, who'd attended his commissioning ceremony, who sent him a text every year on the anniversary of his first deployment. That man couldn't be a traitor. But the woman standing in front of him wasn't lying. He could see it in her eyes, the weight of 5 years carrying that truth alone. If what you're saying is true, Cross said carefully, then coming out of hiding is suicide. He'll have you killed before you can prove anything. I know, she smiled. It was sad, tired, but I'm tired of being dead. Before Cross could respond, his phone buzzed. A text message from the base operations center. Priority, General Cross's convoy entering main gate. ETA your location, 3 minutes. He looked up at Kira. He's not going to his quarters, he's coming here. She didn't seem surprised. Then I guess we'll find out if he remembers me. Sam moved to the window, looked out at the parking lot. 3 vehicles, SUVs, security detail. This isn't a social call. Cross made a decision, the kind of decision that could end his career but felt right in his gut. We can get you out, back entrance. My car is 2 blocks away. You disappear, we tell him you transferred out yesterday. Kira shook her head. I'm done disappearing. Headlights swept across the apartment windows. The vehicles pulled into the parking lot below. Doors opened. Voices carried up through the night air. Cross's phone rang. He answered. Commander Cross. The voice was familiar, warm, avuncular. General Vincent Cross. Sorry for the late visit. I'm at your maintenance tech's apartment. Thought we could have a chat, all of us. Would you mind joining? Cross looked at Kira. She nodded. On my way, sir. He ended the call, looked at Sam, then back at Kira. Last chance to run. I don't run anymore, she said quietly. I reload. She moved to the lamp on the side table, reached behind it, pulled out something small. A radio, compact, encrypted, the kind of gear that contractors weren't supposed to have. She put in an earpiece, spoke quietly. This is silencer, protocol is compromised. General Cross is here. A voice crackled back. Female, American accent, professional. Copy silencer, abort mission. Kira looked at Cross, at Sam, at the door where her past was about to walk through. Negative, if I run now, he'll know I'm staying. What's your play? I meet him face to face, and I remember. Understood, going dark, contact when clear. She pulled the earpiece out, tucked the radio back behind the lamp, took a deep breath. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, heavy, measured, multiple sets. Someone knocked. Kira crossed to the door. Her hand rested on the handle for just a moment. Then she opened it. General Vincent Cross stood in the hallway, 58 years old, silver hair cut military short, 2 stars gleaming on his shoulders. He had the kind of face that belonged on recruiting posters. Strong, confident, trustworthy. He smiled when he saw her, warm, genuine. Ms. Vaughn, I've been looking forward to meeting you. Behind him stood 4 men in civilian clothes, security contractors, armed, professional. Their eyes swept the apartment, cataloging exits and threats. Kira stepped aside. General, please come in. He entered alone. The security detail stayed in the hall. Cross glanced around the sparse apartment with casual interest, noted the lack of personal items, the temporary nature of everything. Traveling light, he observed, smart. Cross and Sam stood near the kitchen, watching, tense. The general turned to his nephew. Commander, good to see you. Sorry for the surprise visit. Sorry. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Just a conversation. Good, good. He turned back to Kira, really looked at her. His smile never wavered, but something changed behind his eyes. Recognition maybe, or calculation. Ms. Vaughn, I heard about your performance at the range today. Quite impressive. Where did you learn to shoot like that? Kira met his gaze, didn't blink. Practice, sir. Must have been quite a lot of practice. He moved closer, casual, unthreatening. You remind me of someone I used to know, long time ago. Afghanistan, talented operator, very skilled. I've never been to Afghanistan. No, his smile widened. My mistake then. The silence stretched. 5 seconds, 10. Neither of them looked away. Finally, the general glanced at his watch. Well, it's late. I should let you get back to your evening. Just wanted to introduce myself. We'll talk more tomorrow. I'm very interested in learning more about you. He moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the frame, looked back at her one more time. One question, though, if you don't mind. Sorry. That scar on your hand, the one on your left knuckle, how'd you get it? Kira's hand moved unconsciously to cover it. Old injury, carelessness. The general nodded slowly. Funny. I knew someone with that exact same scar. She got it during advanced rifle manipulation drills. Bolt slammed shut on her hand during a speed reload. Never did heal quite right. He smiled again. This time it didn't reach his eyes. "Sleep well, Miss Vaughn." He left. The security detail fell in behind him. Their footsteps faded down the hall. Cross moved to the window, watched the convoy pull away. When the taillights disappeared, he turned back to Kira. "He knows." She nodded. "He's known since the range, maybe before." "So what now?" Kira sat down on the couch. The tension that had held her upright seemed to drain away all at once. She looked suddenly exhausted. "Now we wait. He'll make a move. He has to. I'm a loose end." Sam's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. His face went pale. "What?" Cross asked. "Base alert. All personnel. General Cross has requested emergency security protocols, effective immediately. No one enters or leaves the base without his direct authorization." Cross felt his stomach drop. "He just locked us down." "Not us," Kira said quietly. "Me. He's making sure I can't run." She stood, moved to the window, looked out at the base, at the lights scattered across the darkness, at the ocean beyond. 36 hours, she said. "That's how long until he makes his move. I need to be ready." "Ready for what?" Sam asked. She turned back to face them. Her expression had changed again. The exhausted civilian was gone. What remained was the operator, the survivor, the woman who'd been dead for 5 years and learned how to live with ghosts. "To show mercy to my hunters and make them ask why." Outside, fog rolled across the base, thick, heavy, the kind that swallowed everything and gave back nothing but questions. Somewhere in that darkness, a 2-star general sat in his temporary quarters, making calls, giving orders, setting pieces on a board that only he could see. And somewhere else, closer than anyone knew, a woman checked her weapons, counted her ammunition, made her plans. The mercy paradox was about to begin. And no one, not the commander, not the general, not even Kira herself, knew exactly how it would end. Only that blood had been spilled 5 years ago. And now it was time to ask why. Dawn broke over Coronado with the kind of light that promised heat, sharp, unforgiving, the kind that burned away fog and left everything exposed. Commander Ethan Cross hadn't slept. He sat at his desk, the same desk where his father had sat 30 years ago when this was still his office, and stared at screens full of information that created more questions than answers. Coffee had gone cold in his cup hours ago. He didn't notice. The base had changed overnight. General Cross's emergency protocols meant checkpoints at every gate, ID verification at every building entrance, armed security contractors walking perimeters that had been open yesterday. The whole installation had transformed into something tighter, more controlled. A prison with nice architecture. Sam Briggs entered without knocking. He looked as tired as Cross felt, maybe more. He carried a folder, old school, paper instead of digital, the kind of information you couldn't trace through computer logs. "You need to see this," Sam said. He dropped the folder on the desk. Cross opened it. Inside were printouts, photographs, satellite images, most of them stamped with classification markings that meant Sam had called in serious favors to get them. The first image showed a compound in Afghanistan, desert mountains in the background, dated November 2019. A black X marked one building. "Operation Nightfall," Sam said. "I found someone who'd talk off the record, way off." Cross looked up. "How far off?" "The kind where if anyone finds out, we both disappear." Sam pulled up a chair, sat heavily. Nightfall was a joint task force operation, CIA paramilitary and Delta Force operators. Target was a Taliban intelligence broker named Khalid Rahman. He had a list. Names of 47 undercover assets across the Middle East. If that list went public, those people died. Their families died. Networks we'd spent 20 years building collapsed. So they sent in a team. 12 operators, best of the best. The mission was simple. Get in, eliminate Rahman, secure the list, get out. Sam paused, rubbed his face. Something went wrong. Cross knew what came next, but he asked anyway. What happened? The team got ambushed. Someone gave Rahman their exact position, their approach route, their timing, everything. He was waiting for them with 60 fighters. It was a massacre. The silence in the office was heavy. Outside, morning PT formations jogged past. Their cadence calls drifted through the window. Normal sounds of a normal day, except nothing was normal anymore. How many made it out? Cross asked, though he already knew. One, a sniper designated as Overwatch. She was positioned on a ridge 800 meters from the compound. When the ambush started, she provided covering fire, kept the team alive long enough to attempt extraction. Kira. Sam nodded. Her real designation was silencer. CIA doesn't use names in their paramilitary units, just call signs. She watched her entire team die. 11 people, some of them she'd worked with for 3 years, and she couldn't save them. Cross looked at the next photo. A satellite thermal image. Heat signatures scattered across terrain. Most were stationary, bodies. One moved, slowly, methodically. A single figure making its way through hostile territory toward an extraction point 12 kilometers away. How'd she get out? Walked. 68 hours through Taliban-controlled territory. No food, limited water, carrying a 50-pound rifle and enough ammunition to fight her way through if she had to. Sam's voice was quiet, respectful. Her handler, a man named Michael Reeves, extracted her personally. Helicopter insertion into a hot zone. He took fire getting her out. Nearly died. And then what? Then the CIA declared the whole team KIA, closed file, classified everything, gave Kira a new identity and told her to disappear. Sam leaned forward. But here's the thing. I talked to a guy who was in the Tactical Operations Center that night. He monitored the whole mission, and he said something never sat right with him. What? The ambush was too perfect. Rahman had positioned his fighters in exactly the right spots to cut off every egress route. He knew the team's backup plan, their contingency plan, their emergency extraction point. That level of intelligence doesn't come from lucky guessing. Cross felt cold despite the morning heat. Someone on our side gave it to him. Not just someone, the mission coordinator, the only person who had access to all of that operational detail. Sam pulled out another photo. This one showed 2 men shaking hands, one in traditional Afghan clothing, the other in civilian clothes but clearly American. The American was General Vincent Cross. The photo was dated 2 weeks before Operation Nightfall. Cross stared at his uncle's face, at the smile, at the casual way he stood next to a man who would later slaughter 11 American operators. That could be anything, Cross said, but his voice lacked conviction. Intelligence gathering, source development. Could be. Sam pulled out another photo, except this one was taken 3 days after the mission. Same 2 men, different location. This time the Taliban broker was handing over a small case, the kind used to transport sensitive documents. Or payment. He sold them, Cross whispered. For $8 million. Wire transferred through 3 shell companies in Dubai, eventually landing in an account in the Cayman Islands. My contact traced it. The account is owned by a trust. The beneficiary is your uncle. The world tilted slightly. Cross gripped the edge of his desk to steady himself. Family, blood, the man who taught him how to shoot when he was 12, who'd given the speech at his wedding, who sent birthday cards to his kids. That man had murdered 11 operators for money. "Does Kira know about these photos?" Cross asked. "She sent them 3 weeks ago to 6 different addresses, Congressional Oversight Committees, Inspector General, DOD Criminal Investigation Division, and me." Sam's expression was grim. "She's been building a case, collecting evidence. She came here deliberately. Knew your uncle would be doing this inspection. She wanted to confront him." "That's suicide." "Maybe, or maybe she's just done running." Cross's phone buzzed. A text from the operations center. General Cross requesting commander's presence at temporary command post. Immediately. "He knows we know," Cross said. Sam stood. His hand moved unconsciously to his sidearm. "You going?" "Have to. I'm still under his chain of command." Cross grabbed his cover. "Find Kira, make sure she's safe." "She left her apartment 2 hours ago. Security cameras lost her in the maintenance area." "She's preparing." "For what?" Cross looked at his friend. At the man who'd saved his life in Fallujah and been best man at his wedding and knew him better than anyone. For whatever comes next. The temporary command post occupied a conference room in the base headquarters. Large, windowless, designed for classified briefings. When Cross entered, General Vincent Cross sat at the head of the table. Alone. No aides, no security, just him and a laptop and that same warm smile. "Ethan, thanks for coming. Close the door, would you?" Cross did. The lock clicked with finality. "Sit." He sat. The general studied him for a moment. That appraising look Cross had seen 1,000 times growing up, measuring, calculating, deciding how much truth to share. "You've been digging into things that don't concern you," the general said finally. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "Personnel files, classified operations, making calls to people who shouldn't be talking to you." "Just doing my job, sir." "Your job is running this base, not investigating your commanding officers." He paused. "Or playing detective with a woman who's supposed to be dead." There it was, out in the open. Cross met his uncle's eyes. "So you know who she is?" "Of course I know. I've known since the moment she transferred to armory duty 3 months ago. Facial recognition flagged her. Did you really think she could hide from me?" The general's smile never wavered. "I have software running on every security camera on this base. The second she started working with classified weapons systems, I got an alert. Kira Vaughn, CIA paramilitary, Operation Nightfall survivor, supposed KIA. Why didn't you move against her sooner?" "Because I wanted to know what she knew, what she'd figured out, what evidence she had." He tapped the laptop. "Turns out quite a lot. Photos, financial records, wire transfers. She's been busy." Cross's hands clenched under the table. "You sold them, your own people, for money." The general's expression didn't change. "I made a calculated decision in a complex situation. The Taliban broker had intelligence that threatened 47 embedded assets, Americans deep in hostile networks, families, children. If that information went public, they all died. So you sacrificed 12 operators instead." "I saved 47 lives by spending 12. That's basic mathematics, Ethan. Sometimes command means choosing the lesser evil." Cross felt his stomach turn. "You're lying. There were no 47 assets," Kira said. "Kira said what I needed her to believe." The general leaned forward. "Here's what actually happened. Rahman had the list. He also had $8 million he was willing to pay for insurance. He wanted to know if anyone was coming for him. I told him, and in exchange, he gave me the asset list and the money. You got paid twice, once by Rahman, once by our government when the mission succeeded. The mission did succeed. Rahman is dead, the list was secured. Those 47 people are still alive and working. Yes, 12 operators died, that's unfortunate, but war has casualties. Cross stood, his chair scraped against the floor. They trusted you. And I made the hard call. The general's voice hardened. You think you understand command, Ethan. You command a base. I command theaters. You make decisions that affect hundreds. I make decisions that affect thousands. When you've sat where I sit, when you've had to choose between bad options and worse options, then you can judge me. I'm not judging you, I'm reporting you. The general actually laughed. To who, DODIG, Congressional Oversight, I've already spoken with them. Explained that a mentally unstable former operator with documented PTSD has been making false accusations. Showed them psychiatric evaluations, medical records, all properly documented. Cross felt the trap close. You fabricated her medical history. I did what was necessary to protect national security. If the real story of Nightfall becomes public, it damages relationships with allies, compromises ongoing operations, and gets more people killed. So yes, I made sure that if Kira Vaughn comes forward, she'll be dismissed as a traumatized veteran with an unstable grip on reality. She has proof. Had proof, past tense. The general turned the laptop around. The screen showed a file directory, folders labeled with deletion timestamps. I attempted to remotely wipe her primary encrypted drives last night. Standard cybersecurity protocol for compromised systems. Some files were successfully deleted before she disconnected from the network. Cross stared at the screen. Attempted. She's smart. Disconnected her devices before the wipe completed, but it doesn't matter. The general smiled. The photos she sent out 3 weeks ago, intercepted before they reached most destinations. The bank records. Those accounts have been frozen pending investigation into money laundering, making the records inadmissible. Every piece of evidence has been compromised or discredited. Except what she still has. Which is why I need to know where she is for her own safety. The general's tone shifted, became almost paternal. Ethan, she's in danger, not from me, from the people Rahman worked for. They have long memories. If they find out she's alive, they'll come for her. I can protect her, but only if she cooperates. Cross felt sick. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. You're going to kill her. I'm going to ensure operational security. There's a difference. The general stood, walked to the window, looked out at the base. You have a choice. Help me find her, or be charged as an accessory to espionage. I have evidence that you've been accessing classified files without authorization, communicating with foreign intelligence services, conspiring with a known fugitive. That's fabricated. Doesn't matter, the investigation alone will destroy you. Court-martial, dishonorable discharge, federal prison, your family left with nothing. He turned back. Or you help me, find Kira, bring her in, and all of this goes away. You keep your career, your pension, your future. Cross felt rage building in his chest, hot, focused. You do that to family. I do that to anyone who threatens me. Family doesn't change the math. The general's voice softened slightly. I'm giving you a chance, Ethan. Walk away. Forget this conversation. Forget Kira Vaughn. Go back to your normal life. That's the smart play. And if I don't, then you'll learn what happens to people who make the wrong choice. The general moved to the door, opened it. You have until 1800 hours, that's, he checked his watch, 9 hours from now. After that, decisions get made for you. Cross watched him leave. heard his footsteps fade down the hallway, sat alone in the conference room with the weight of 9 hours pressing down like a mountain. His phone buzzed, text from Sam. Found her, you need to see this. Maintenance Building 7. Maintenance Building 7 sat on the edge of the base. Old. Scheduled for demolition next year. The kind of structure everyone forgot about because it was easier to build new than fix old. Cross found Sam standing outside. The big man looked shaken. That was unusual. Sam had seen combat across 3 continents, had been shot twice and kept fighting. Didn't shake easy. She's inside, Sam said. Fair warning, it's not what you expect. Cross entered through a side door. The interior was dark. Most of the overhead lights were broken or removed, but there was light deeper in, artificial, focused. He followed it. The main bay had been transformed, every window covered with blackout material. Portable work lights set up around a central table. On that table, maps, dozens of them, base layouts, building schematics, security patrol schedules, all marked up with precise notations. Kira stood at the table. She'd changed, not her clothes, her presence. The maintenance worker was gone completely. What remained was the operator, hair pulled back tight, eyes focused. She wore black tactical pants and a dark gray shirt. On her hip, a sidearm. On the table beside the maps, a disassembled Barrett M82. She looked up when Cross entered. No surprise, she'd known he was coming. Commander, Chief. Her voice was different too, harder, more controlled. I assume you spoke with the general. He admitted everything, Cross said. Then told me he's attempted to wipe your primary evidence files. Said most of your proof is compromised. I know, I monitored the network intrusion last night. He got into my decoy drives. She didn't sound upset, just matter of fact. I expected that. Cross felt relief flood through him. Decoy. I've been doing this for 5 years, Commander. You think I'd keep my only copies on network-connected devices? She moved to a gear bag in the corner, pulled out 3 USB drives, physical backups, air-gapped, updated weekly. The general destroyed nothing I can't replace. And the copies I sent out 3 weeks ago, 6 destinations. He may have intercepted some, but not all. Sam exhaled slowly. You planned for him to try this. I planned for everything. He's predictable when he's threatened, attack the evidence, discredit the source, isolate the target. She returned to the maps. Which brings us to today. In 6 hours, the general is conducting a readiness inspection at the armory. Full SEAL team present, base commanders, external observers from NAVSBCWAR headquarters. He's making a show of it, demonstrating his thoroughness. Cross saw where this was going. You're going to confront him there, in front of witnesses. Better, I'm going to make him chase me. And when he does, when he sends his contractors after me with lethal force authorization, everyone will see exactly what he is. That's suicide, Sam said. Maybe, or maybe it's justice. Kira's expression was calm, almost serene. I've spent 5 years dead. If I actually die stopping him, that's acceptable. Cross felt something crack inside him. This woman, this stranger who'd been living invisible on his base for months, she was ready to die to expose his uncle, ready to sacrifice herself for 11 people who were already gone. There has to be another way, he said. There isn't, he's too protected, too connected. The only way to expose him is to make him act, to push him into a corner where he has to show his true nature. She looked at Cross, really looked at him. I need your help, but I understand if you can't give it. You have a family, a career, a future. I'm asking you to risk all of that. Cross thought about his uncle's offer. 9 hours to walk away, to save himself, to choose the smart play. He thought about 11 operators who trusted their mission coordinator and died for it. He thought about what his father would do, the man who'd sat at that same desk and believed that honor mattered more than convenience. "What do you need?" he asked. Kira smiled, small, genuine. "I need a distraction, and I need someone to record everything. Because when this is over, there needs to be proof that can't be erased." Over the next 3 hours, they planned. Cross had commanded men in combat. He knew operations, knew risk assessment and contingency planning. But this was different. This was planning to deliberately provoke a general officer into revealing himself as a murderer. Sam would position himself with a camera in the armory observation deck, record everything, upload it to multiple cloud servers in real time, impossible to delete them all. Cross would ensure the external observers from NAVSBCWAR stayed for the entire inspection, keep them present, make sure they witnessed whatever happened. And Kira would be the bait. "He'll send his contractors," she explained, moving pieces on the map like chess pieces. "The same 4-man security team that's been shadowing him since he arrived. They're already on base, cleared through as official protective detail. When I show myself at the inspection, he'll order them to detain me, quietly, before I can speak, but I won't go quietly." "You're going to fight 4 armed contractors in the middle of a base," Sam said. It wasn't a question, just disbelief. "I'm going to defend myself. There's a difference. And when they escalate, when they try to use lethal force, that's when everyone sees who gave the order." Cross studied the map. The armory had multiple exits, good sight lines, but also lots of civilians, SEALs in training. People could get hurt. "I won't fire a shot at anyone who doesn't fire at me first. This isn't about killing, it's about exposure." Kira looked at them both. "Trust me, I've been planning this for 3 years. I know exactly how it plays out." "And if it doesn't?" Sam asked. "If he kills you before anyone understands what's happening?" "Then you make sure the recording gets out. You make sure people know why I died." She paused. "That's all I'm asking. Witness, record, share. Let the truth survive even if I don't." The weight of that request settled over the room. Outside, the base continued its normal rhythm. Training, maintenance, the daily machinery of military life. But in this forgotten building, 3 people prepared to break everything. Cross's phone buzzed, text from the general. Inspection moved up to 1400 hours, 2 hours from now. All senior staff required to attend. He showed Kira the message. She nodded. "He's applying pressure, wants to force my hand before I'm ready." "Are you ready?" She looked at the maps, at the disassembled rifle, at her own hands. "I've been ready for 5 years." The armory at 1330 looked like every military ceremony Cross had ever attended. Crisp, organized, controlled. 3 rows of SEALs in dress uniforms stood at attention. Behind them, racks of weapons gleaming under fluorescent lights. To the side, a small group of observers. NAVSBCWAR brass, congressional liaison, 2 journalists approved for base access. General Cross stood at the front, resplendent, 2 stars catching the light. He spoke about readiness, training, the importance of maintaining equipment to the highest standards. His voice carried authority, warmth, the tone of a leader who cared about his people. Cross stood in the back with other base commanders. Sam had disappeared toward the observation deck. The camera would be recording by now. Kira wasn't visible yet, but she was here. Cross could feel it, the tension in the air, the sense of something about to break. The general concluded his opening remarks, started walking down the line of SEALs, inspecting, asking questions, making small talk, playing the role perfectly. Then the side door opened. Kira walked in. She wore her maintenance coveralls, hair down, completely calm. She carried a tablet in her hands. Every head turned. The general stopped mid-sentence. His expression froze for just a fraction of a second. Then the warm smile returned. "Ms. Vaughn, this is a formal inspection. Civilian contractors aren't authorized to." "I have something you need to see, sir." Her voice carried across the armory, clear, steady. She held up the tablet. Evidence of criminal activity, financial crimes, murder, all documented. The room went dead silent. One of the journalists started recording on his phone. The NAVSBECWAR admiral stepped forward. "Young lady, what is this about?" Kira turned to him. "Admiral, this man coordinated the deaths of 12 American operators for personal profit. I have proof." The general's expression shifted. The warmth disappeared. What replaced it was cold, calculating. "She's mentally ill, PTSD from a previous deployment. She's been making these accusations for weeks. I have psychiatric evaluations." "You have fabricated documents." Kira pressed a button on the tablet. "I'm uploading everything to your phone right now, Admiral. Photos, financial records, audio recordings, everything. Multiple redundant copies stored across secure servers. Even if this tablet is destroyed, the evidence exists." The Admiral's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, started scrolling. His face went pale. The general made a small gesture, barely visible, just a slight movement of his hand. Two of the contractors from his security detail stepped forward from the back. They'd been positioned there all along, waiting. "Ms. Vaughn, you need to come with us," one said. His hand moved toward her arm. Kira stepped back. "Don't touch me." "Ma'am, this can be easy or hard." "I'm not going anywhere with you." The contractor reached for her, fast, trained. Kira was faster. She caught his wrist, redirected, used his momentum against him. The man stumbled forward. His partner moved in. Kira dropped low, swept his legs. He went down hard. The first contractor recovered, reached for his sidearm. The armory erupted in shouts. Real SEALs moving forward. The admiral yelling for everyone to stand down. Observers backing away. Through it all, Kira moved. Not attacking, just defending. Every grab redirected. Every strike deflected. She flowed around violence like water around stone. The general's voice cut through the chaos. "Detain her, she's a threat." Two more contractors appeared from the back. These ones didn't bother with pretense. They had weapons drawn. "Get down on the ground, now." Kira raised her hands, slowly. "I'm unarmed, I'm not resisting. Everyone here is witness. I came to deliver evidence." "Get down." She knelt, hands behind her head, completely compliant. One contractor moved behind her, pulled zip ties from his belt, reached for her wrists. The admiral stepped forward. "Belay that. No one is detaining anyone until I understand what's happening here." He looked at the general. "Vincent, what the hell is going on?" The general's composure cracked slightly. "This woman is a security threat. She needs to be removed and—" "She just accused you of murder. On camera." The admiral held up his phone. "And I'm looking at what appears to be very compelling evidence. So before anyone gets detained, you and I are going to have a conversation. In private." The general's eyes flickered to Kira, to the contractors, to the observers, calculating, measuring, trying to find an angle. He couldn't find one. Too many witnesses, too many cameras, too many people who'd heard the accusation. "Of course, Admiral, I welcome any inquiry. You'll find this is all a misunderstanding. Fabricated evidence from a disturbed individual." He smiled. That same warm smile. "I'm sure we can clear this up quickly." But Cross saw it. The tiny crack in the facade. The momentary panic before the mask came back up. and he knew in that moment that Kira had won. Not completely, not yet, but she'd forced the general to react, to show his hand, to make mistakes. The admiral turned to Cross. "Commander, I want everyone in this room held here until Jag arrives. No one leaves. No one talks to anyone outside. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "Ms. Vaughn, you're going to sit with me and walk me through every piece of evidence you have." Kira stood, lowered her hands. "Thank you, Admiral." The contractors looked at the general, waiting for orders. He gave a tiny shake of his head. "Stand down." They holstered their weapons. The tension deflated slightly. People started breathing again. That's when Cross's phone buzzed. Text from Sam. "You need to see what I found. Now, observation deck." Cross excused himself, headed for the stairs. Behind him, the admiral was already questioning Kira. The journalists were documenting everything. The general stood alone, isolated, his carefully constructed world beginning to crack. The observation deck overlooked the armory through one-way glass. Sam stood at a laptop. His face was grim. "What is it?" Cross asked. "I was setting up the camera, testing the cloud upload, and I noticed something on the base network." He turned the laptop around. "Someone's been monitoring everything, not just security cameras, personal phones, computers, everything." The screen showed a network map, lines connecting every device on base to a central server. "Whose server?" Cross asked, though he already knew. "The general's. He's been running total surveillance on this base for 3 months, since Kira transferred to armory duty." "Why?" "Because," Sam typed something. A new window opened, chat logs, thousands of them. He wasn't just watching for Kira, he was watching everyone, looking for leverage, dirt, anything he could use. Cross scrolled through the logs, saw messages between SEALs, between commanders, private conversations, medical records, financial information, everything. He's been blackmailing people, Cross realized. That's how he's kept control, not just authority, not just rank. He has information on everyone. There's more. Sam pulled up another file. 3 days ago he made a call to a contractor in Virginia, former CIA, specializes in problems. Cross read the transcript, felt his blood go cold. The general had ordered a hit on Kira, professional elimination. The contractor had already been paid $50,000, half up front. He was supposed to arrive on base today undercover as a systems technician. If Kira couldn't be controlled, she'd be eliminated. Quietly, professionally, made to look like an accident. The hit was scheduled for today, 1800 hours, the same deadline he'd given Cross. "Where is she?" Cross asked. "Still in the armory with the admiral." "We need to move her, now, if that contractor is already on base." Gunfire erupted from below. Not the controlled pop of training rounds, the sharp crack of live ammunition, 3 shots, 4, 5. Cross ran for the stairs, Sam right behind him. They burst into the armory. Chaos, people scattered, SEALs taking cover, the admiral down behind a desk, phone to his ear calling for security. Kira stood in the center of the room, perfectly still. In her hand, a Sig Sauer P226, smoke drifting from the barrel. Across from her, 20 feet away, a man in civilian clothes. Technician uniform, down, not moving. A pistol lay beside his outstretched hand. Jordan Wells appeared from behind a weapons rack. He came in shooting, went straight for Ms. Vaughn. She returned fire. Cross looked at the body, then at Kira. She was calm, too calm, like she'd been expecting this. "That's the contractor," Sam said quietly. "The hitter." The general stood in the corner. His face was white, bloodless. She murdered him, you all saw, she. He fired first, sir. Jordan's voice was steel. I watched the whole thing. He came in with weapon drawn, identified himself as base security, then fired 3 rounds at Ms. Vaughn without warning. She defended herself. The admiral stood, looked at the general, at the body, at Kira. Someone want to explain why there's a civilian contractor trying to kill people in my armory. Kira set the pistol on a table, carefully. Because General Cross hired him to kill me. That contract was placed 3 days ago. Payment $50,000 via wire transfer. I've been monitoring his communications. I knew he was coming. I knew what he looked like. I was prepared. That's ridiculous. I never. You used an encrypted messaging app, deleted the messages after, but I recovered them from the backup server. She looked at the admiral. It's all in the files I sent you, along with everything else. The surveillance system he's been running, the blackmail files, the original Nightfall evidence, everything. The admiral's expression hardened. He turned to 2 Marines standing guard. Detain General Cross. He's under investigation for multiple violations of UCMJ and federal law. You can't do this, the general said, but his voice had lost its power. I'm a 2-star general. You don't have authority to. I'm a 3-star admiral, and right now you're a suspect in a murder-for-hire plot, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges. So yes, I do have authority. The admiral nodded to the Marines. Take him. They moved forward, professional, efficient. One took the general's sidearm, the other produced handcuffs. For the first time, real fear showed on General Vincent Cross's face. This is a mistake, when people find out what she really is. A survivor, Kira said quietly. A witness, someone you tried to kill twice, once in Afghanistan and once today. The general looked at her, really looked at her, and Cross saw recognition there. Memory. 5 years ago, this woman had been on a ridge in Afghanistan, had watched her team die because of his betrayal, had survived when she should have been killed. And now she was standing in front of him, alive, proof of his failure. You should have stayed dead, the general said softly. So should your victims, but we don't always get what we want. The Marines led him away. His footsteps echoed across the armory floor, growing fainter, then gone. The admiral turned to Kira. Ms. Vaughn, you're going to need to give a statement, full debrief, everything. Yes, sir. And you, he looked at Cross, you knew about this, didn't you? Cross met his eyes. I learned about it this morning, sir. I chose to help expose the truth rather than cover it up. The admiral studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. We'll discuss your judgment later. Right now, I need this scene secured and investigated. Teams arrived. JAG, NCIS, security. The armory transformed into a crime scene. Yellow tape, photographers, evidence collection. The machinery of military justice grinding into motion. Cross found Kira outside. She stood alone near the water, watching the sun start its descent toward the Pacific. She looked smaller somehow, like the armor she'd worn had finally cracked. You okay? He asked. I killed a man today. You defended yourself. I know doesn't make it easier. She turned to face him. Thank you for trusting me, for helping. You risked everything. So did you. I had nothing to lose. You had a career, a family, a future. Cross shook his head. I had a choice between doing the right thing and doing the safe thing. My father taught me there's only one choice that lets you sleep at night. Kira smiled, sad, tired. Your father sounds like a good man. He was. They stood in silence, watching the water. Behind them, the base continued to process what had happened. Investigators working, statements being taken, evidence secured, the slow work of justice. Sam appeared. Admiral wants us both. Debrief in 30 minutes. Kira nodded. I'll be there. She turned back to the ocean. Cross started to leave, then paused. What happens now to you? I don't know. The CIA will want to talk to me. So will Congress, DOD, probably FBI. She was quiet for a moment. 5 years ago I died. Today I came back. I'm not sure which version of me survives what comes next. The version that stood in that armory and told the truth. That's the one that survives. She looked at him. I hope you're right. Cross left her there, alone with the water and the fading light and whatever ghost she carried. Inside, the debrief lasted 4 hours. Kira walked the Admiral through everything. Operation Nightfall, the ambush, her survival, Michael Reeves and his role, the 5 years of collecting evidence, every detail laid out with precision. The Admiral listened, asked questions, took notes. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. This is going to be the biggest scandal to hit DOD in 20 years. Yes, sir. A lot of powerful people are going to want this buried, quietly, efficiently. I know. You understand you'll be a target for the rest of your life. People who don't want this truth public, they'll come after you. Kira nodded. I've been a target for 5 years. I'm used to it. The Admiral studied her. What do you want, Ms. Vaughn? Justice, revenge, recognition. Peace, that's all, just peace. That's a hard thing to find in our line of work. I'm not in your line of work anymore. I'm just someone trying to survive. The Admiral stood, extended his hand. You did good work today, dangerous work, but good. She shook his hand. Thank you, sir. I'll make sure the investigation is thorough, transparent. The evidence you've provided is substantial. General Cross will face court-martial, probably federal charges. He's going away for a long time. What about the others, the people who helped him cover it up? We'll find them, all of them, I promise you that. Kira left the office, stepped out into the night. The base was quieter now. Most people had gone to their quarters, a few security patrols, otherwise still. She found a bench near the water, sat, let the exhaustion finally catch up with her. For 5 years she'd carried this weight, the truth, the evidence, the need for justice. It had defined every day, every decision, every moment. Now it was done. The general was in custody, the evidence was secured, the truth was coming out. And she felt empty. Not relieved, not triumphant, just empty, like she'd spent so long preparing for this moment that she hadn't thought about what came after. Footsteps approached. Sam Briggs sat down beside her, didn't say anything, just sat. After a while, Kira spoke. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Live, without the mission, without the purpose. For 5 years, everything was about exposing him. Now that's done, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. Sam was quiet. Then he said, you're supposed to rest, to heal, to figure out who you are when you're not surviving. What if there's nothing left? What if I'm just the mission? There's always something left, even when it doesn't feel like it. He looked at her. You know what I did after my first deployment, when I came back and realized I didn't know how to be a civilian anymore. What? I built a boat, spent 2 years on it. Didn't know the first thing about boats. Watched YouTube videos, made mistakes, started over. It was terrible. Kira smiled slightly. Did you finish it? Hell no. It sank the first time I put it in the water, but that wasn't the point. The point was having something to do that wasn't about life and death, something that didn't matter. I don't know if I can do that. Not matter. You already matter. You just exposed one of the biggest betrayals in military history. You got justice for 11 people who couldn't get it themselves. That matters. It'll always matter, but you don't have to carry it anymore. She thought about that, about setting down the weight, about what that would feel like. She wasn't sure, but maybe that was okay. They sat together as the stars came out. The ocean whispered against the shore. Somewhere in the distance, a ship horn sounded, deep, resonant, the sound of something massive moving through darkness. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more depositions, more investigations. The machinery of justice would grind forward, slowly, methodically, but forward. Tonight she could just sit, just breathe, just exist without purpose or mission or weight. It wasn't peace yet. But maybe it was the beginning. The first step toward whatever came next. 3 weeks after the armory, the headlines still burned across every news channel. General arrested in military betrayal scandal. Nightfall operation exposed. 12 operators sold for profit. The story had teeth. The kind that sank deep and didn't let go. Kira Vaughn sat in a coffee shop in San Diego, far enough from base to breathe, close enough to return when the lawyers called, which they did, daily, sometimes hourly. Congressional investigators, DOD Inspector General, JAG preparing the court-martial case, FBI building federal charges. Everyone wanted her testimony. Everyone needed her story. She told it so many times the words had lost meaning, just sounds now, a script she performed on demand. The coffee had gone cold again. She stared at it, watched the thin film form on the surface. Outside, people walked past, normal lives, jobs and families and problems that didn't involve body counts or betrayal. She envied them. Her phone buzzed, text from Ethan Cross, need to see you, important, the lighthouse, 1900 hours. Point Loma Lighthouse, where she'd gone that first night when sleep wouldn't come, when the weight of carrying truth alone had felt like drowning. She'd stood at the railing and looked at the ocean and wondered if disappearing into it would be easier than fighting. She texted back, I'll be there. 6 hours to kill. She ordered another coffee, opened her laptop, checked the encrypted email account that only 3 people knew existed. One new message, no sender name, just a number sequence she recognized, CIA. The message was short. Ms. Vaughn, your service is remembered, your sacrifice acknowledged. When you're ready, there's a place for you, not in the field, something quieter, consulting, training, helping others who walk the path you walked. No pressure, no deadline, just know the door is open. It was signed with initials, DDO, Deputy Director of Operations, the person who'd authorized her resurrection from KIA status, who'd created her civilian identity 5 years ago, who'd protected her when the general came hunting. She read it 3 times, then closed the laptop without responding. Not yet, maybe not ever. The idea of going back, even in a training role, felt like stepping into a grave she'd barely escaped. The hours passed, she walked, found herself at the waterfront, watched boats come and go, fishermen returning with their catch, tourists taking photos, a kid learning to sail, his father calling instructions from the dock. Normal, safe, boring. Everything she'd fought for, everything she'd nearly died to preserve. So why did it feel empty? The lighthouse stood on the point like a sentinel, white tower against darkening sky. The beam swept across the water with mechanical precision, every 12 seconds, constant, reliable, uncaring. Ethan Cross leaned against the railing. He'd changed since the armory, looked older, harder. The weight of what he'd done, what he'd risked, had settled into the lines around his eyes. He saw her approaching, nodded, didn't smile. "Thanks for coming," he said. "What's wrong?" He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Official, Department of Defense seal. This came today. For you, routed through me since you're technically still attached to the base as a contractor." She took it, felt the weight, opened it. Inside, a single sheet, official letterhead, Secretary of Defense. "Ms. Kira Vaughn, in recognition of your service and sacrifice during Operation Nightfall and subsequent exposure of criminal activity within the Department of Defense, you are hereby awarded the Defense Distinguished Service Medal. Additionally, your status has been changed from KIA to honorably discharged, with full restoration of benefits and back pay for the period of 2019 to present. The ceremony is scheduled for." She stopped reading, looked at Cross. "They want to give me a medal. Highest civilian honor DoD can award. You've earned it." "I don't want it." Cross was quiet for a moment. "I figured you'd say that." "Then why show me?" "Because you need to understand what this means. They're acknowledging you, publicly, officially. You're not a ghost anymore, Kira. You're real, documented, part of the record." She looked at the letter again, at the words that transformed her from dead to alive with bureaucratic efficiency. "What about the others, the 11 who didn't make it? Do they get letters?" "Their families are being notified, told the truth about how they died, given the honors that were denied 5 years ago." He paused. "Because of you, you gave them that." The beam from the lighthouse swept across them, 12 seconds of illumination, then darkness again, then light. "There's something else," Cross said. He pulled out his phone, showed her a video. "This went live 2 hours ago." She recognized the setting. Pentagon press room, an older man at the podium, Admiral James Keller, the one who'd investigated, who'd listened to her story and believed. His voice came through the phone speaker, clear, firm. "Today, the Department of Defense acknowledges a grave injustice. 12 operators serving in Operation Nightfall were betrayed by a senior officer entrusted with their safety. They died not in combat with the enemy, but because of criminal conspiracy within our own ranks. For 5 years, this truth was suppressed. Today, we set the record straight." He listed names, all 11, their ranks, their service records, their families. "These men and women are heroes, not because they died, but because they served with honor in the face of betrayal. And one additional operator, previously listed as KIA, survived to ensure their story was told. That operator is here today. Or rather, her legacy is here, because true heroes don't seek recognition. They seek justice." The video ended. Kira stared at the dark screen. "He didn't use my name." "No, he's protecting you, giving you the choice. You can step forward, accept the medal, be public, or you can stay private. The medal will be awarded either way. Your choice how to receive it." She handed the phone back, looked out at the ocean. The sun had set fully now, just darkness and the rhythm of waves and the lighthouse beam cutting through the void. "What would you do?" she asked. Cross thought about it. "I'd ask myself what I'm trying to protect. If it's privacy, staying hidden makes sense. If it's the truth, being public ensures it can't be buried again. And if I don't know which one matters more, then you're not ready to decide. That's okay too." They stood in silence. The beam swept past, 12 seconds, passed again. "My uncle's trial starts in 2 months, Cross said. They're charging him with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, about 15 other counts. He's looking at life in Leavenworth. No parole." "Good." "His lawyers approached me, wanted me to testify on his behalf. Character witness, talk about his service record, the good he did before Nightfall." Kira turned to look at him. Are you going to? No, I told them the only character I witnessed was the man who tried to kill you twice and felt no remorse. He paused. He's still my uncle, still family, but some things break bonds that blood can't fix. That couldn't have been easy. Nothing about this has been easy, but it was necessary. Cross pushed off the railing. My father used to say there are two types of heart in this world. The hard that makes you stronger and the hard that makes you bitter. The difference is whether you carry it alone or share the weight. Sounds like a wise man. He died when I was 26. Heart attack. Never got to see me make commander. Cross smiled, sad. But I think he'd be proud, not of the rank, of the choice I made in that armory. Kira thought about Michael Reeves, her handler, the man who'd saved her and died for it, who'd carried the weight of betrayal alone until it killed him. I got an offer, she said. CIA training position, helping other operators. You going to take it? I don't know, part of me wants to. Feels like unfinished business, like I owe something to the work. And the other part wants to build a boat. Cross laughed, actually laughed. Sam told you his story. He said it sank. Spectacularly, took on water before it even left the dock, but he spent 2 years on it, happiest I'd seen him since before Fallujah. The lighthouse beam passed again. Kira watched it sweep across the water, searching, always searching, never finding. How do you know when you're done? She asked quietly. When it's okay to stop. Cross was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. You're asking the wrong question. It's not about being done. It's about being ready for what's next. And you don't have to know what that is. You just have to be willing to find out. Her phone buzzed. She checked it. Email from the DoD ceremony coordinator, requesting her response about the medal, in person or in absentia. Decision needed within 48 hours. She put the phone away. I should go. Long drive back to my apartment. Kira, Cross's voice stopped her. Whatever you decide, wherever you go next, you did something important. You exposed evil. You got justice. You saved the truth. That matters. It'll always matter. Don't let the emptiness afterward convince you otherwise. She nodded, didn't trust her voice to respond. The drive back took 40 minutes. Traffic was light. Radio played soft jazz, the kind of music that filled space without demanding attention. Her apartment looked the same, still sparse, still temporary. She'd been here 6 months and it looked like she'd moved in yesterday. No photos, no personal items, ready to disappear in 10 minutes if necessary. Old habits. She made tea, sat at the small table, opened her laptop again. The CIA email was still there, unanswered. Below it, a new message. This one from Dr. Lena Fisher, the base psychologist who'd recognized her, who'd kept her secret, who'd helped when helping was dangerous. Subject line, checking in. Ms. Vaughn, I know you're being pulled in many directions right now. Everyone wants something from you, testimony, appearances, decisions. I wanted to reach out not to ask for anything but to offer something. If you need to talk, to process, to just sit in silence with someone who understands, my door is open. No agenda, no pressure, just presence. It was signed simply, Lena. Kira read it twice, felt something crack in her chest, a small fissure in the armor she'd worn for so long. She typed a response. Thank you, I might take you up on that. She hit send before she could reconsider. The next morning brought rain, heavy, Pacific storm rolling in with wind that rattled windows and turned streets into rivers. Kira stood at her window and watched the world wash clean. Her phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail. But something made her pick up. Ms. Vaughn, a woman's voice, professional, controlled. This is Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. I'm leading the federal investigation into General Cross. I need to ask you some follow-up questions. Would you be available to come to our field office this afternoon? Kira closed her eyes. More questions, more testimony, more reliving. What time? She asked. 1400 hours. I'll send you the address. I'll be there. The call ended. Kira set the phone down, looked at her reflection in the dark screen, saw someone she barely recognized, alive but not living, free but not released. She picked up the phone again, dialed a number she'd memorized but never called. It rang 3 times, then a familiar voice. Dr. Fisher. It's Kira Vaughn. You said your door was open. It is. When would you like to come in? Now, if that's possible. A pause. Give me 30 minutes. I'll clear my schedule. Dr. Fisher's office wasn't on base. She maintained a private practice in La Jolla for civilians and veterans who needed care outside the military system. The building was old, comfortable, designed to feel safe. Kira sat in the waiting room. Rain hammered the windows. A clock on the wall ticked with aggressive precision, 12 seconds between each number, like the lighthouse beam. The inner door opened. Dr. Fisher stood there, older than Kira remembered, maybe late 50s, gray hair pulled back, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Come in, Kira. The office was warm, soft lighting, 2 chairs facing each other, no desk, no barrier, a box of tissues on the side table, classical music playing so quietly it was almost subliminal. Thank you for seeing me on short notice, Kira said. Of course, sit wherever you're comfortable. Kira chose the chair closer to the door. Old habits again, always know your exits. Dr. Fisher sat across from her, didn't pull out a notepad, didn't start with questions, just waited. The silence stretched. Kira felt it pressing against her, all the words she'd never said, all the weight she'd carried alone. I don't know how to do this, she said finally. Do what? Be normal, be alive, be anything other than the mission. Dr. Fisher nodded slowly. Tell me about the mission, not Nightfall, not the general, the mission you've been on since. Kira looked at her hands, at the scar on her left knuckle. Survival, that was the mission. Stay alive, stay hidden, collect evidence, wait for the right moment. Everything else was secondary. And now that mission is complete. Yes. So you're grieving. Kira looked up sharply. Grieving what? I won. The general is in custody. The truth is out. Justice is happening. You're grieving purpose, structure, the thing that gave your survival meaning for 5 years. Dr. Fisher's voice was gentle. That's a real loss, even when it's a good thing. The words hit something deep, something Kira had been avoiding. I don't know who I am without it, she whispered. That's frightening. Yes. It's also normal. You spent 5 years in survival mode, fight or flight, constant vigilance. That becomes your identity. When it ends, there's a void, and voids are terrifying. Kira felt tears threatening, pushed them back. I can't fall apart. Too many people are counting on me. The trial, the investigation, the families who lost people in Nightfall, they need me to be strong. They need you to be truthful, and the truth is you're exhausted, traumatized, grieving. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. The dam broke, not dramatically, just quiet tears sliding down her face. 5 years of holding everything together, 5 years of being strong because strength was survival. Dr. Fisher handed her the tissue box, didn't speak, just let the silence hold space for emotion. After a while, Kira spoke. 11 people died, I lived. I don't understand why. Survivor's guilt, very common, very painful. It's more than guilt, it's the question. Why me? What made me special enough to survive when they didn't? Nothing made you special. You survived because of geography. You were positioned as Overwatch, 800 meters from the ambush. That's not divine selection, it's tactical placement. But I could have done something, could have called for them to abort, could have. Could have gotten yourself killed too. Then there'd be 12 bodies instead of 11, and no one to tell their story, no one to expose the betrayal, no one to get them justice. Kira shook her head. That's rational, I know it's rational, but it doesn't help. Grief isn't rational. Trauma isn't rational. The part of your brain that feels responsible doesn't speak the language of logic. It speaks the language of emotion. And emotionally, you feel like you should have saved them. Yes. You can't save the dead, Kira. You can only honor them. You've done that. You've told their story. You've exposed the man who betrayed them. You've ensured their families know the truth. That's the only thing left to do for them. Then why doesn't it feel like enough? Dr. Fisher leaned forward slightly. Because you're trying to fix something that can't be fixed. You're trying to earn your survival through achievement, through mission completion, through being useful, but survival isn't earned. It just is. And until you accept that, you'll never feel like you've done enough. The words settled over the room. The rain continued outside. The clock ticked. 12 seconds, 12 seconds, 12 seconds. How do I accept it? Kira asked. You start by allowing yourself to rest. Really rest. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. You give yourself permission to not have a mission, to not be useful, to just exist. I don't know how to do that. I know that's why you're here, to learn. They talked for another hour. About Nightfall. About the 11 faces she still saw when she closed her eyes. About Michael Reeves and his sacrifice. About the 5 years of living dead and the strange resurrection of the past 3 weeks. When Kira finally left, the rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through clouds, steam rising from wet pavement, the world cleaned and bright. She felt lighter, not healed, not fixed, but lighter. The FBI interview that afternoon was mechanical. Same questions she'd answered before. Same evidence she'd provided. Special Agent Chen was professional, efficient, thanked her for her cooperation. One more thing, Chen said as Kira was leaving. The general's legal team has requested a meeting with you, mediated. They want to discuss a plea arrangement. Kira stopped. What kind of arrangement? He pleads guilty to reduced charges, accepts responsibility. In exchange, some of the more serious counts get dropped. He'd still go to prison, just potentially not for life. And they want me to agree to this. They want you to not oppose it. Your testimony is the cornerstone of the prosecution. If you're okay with the plea, it carries weight. Kira thought about the general, about his face when the Marines had cuffed him, about the fear there, the realization that his carefully constructed world had collapsed. When do they need an answer? She asked. 2 weeks, think about it. Discuss it with the prosecutors, make an informed choice. Kira nodded and left. That night she couldn't sleep, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about mercy, about justice, about the difference between punishment and closure. At 0300 she gave up on sleep, made coffee, opened her laptop. The CIA email sat there, still unanswered. She started typing. I appreciate the offer. I need time to decide, but I have a question. The 11 who died in Nightfall, did they have families, people who should know what they did, what they sacrificed? She hit send, Didn't expect a response until morning. The reply came in 4 minutes. All 11 had families, all have been notified, all will be present at a memorial service scheduled for next month. Arlington National Cemetery. You're invited to attend, or to speak, your choice. Kira read it 3 times, felt something shift in her chest. She typed, "I'll be there." The response was immediate, "Thank you." She closed the laptop, stood, walked to the window. Dawn was still hours away, but the sky was already starting to lighten. That pre-dawn gray, the color of transition. Her phone buzzed, text from Sam Briggs. "Can't sleep either, huh? If you're up, I'm at the pier. Fishing. Come join if you want. No pressure, just company." She grabbed her jacket and drove. The pier was empty except for Sam. He sat on a folding chair with a fishing rod propped against the railing. No bait on the hook, just the line in the water. Meditation disguised as activity. "Catch anything?" Kira asked. Wasn't really trying. He gestured to the chair beside him. "Have a seat." She sat. They watched the water, dark, endless, the rhythm of waves against pilings. "Cross told me about the medal," Sam said after a while. "Yeah. You going to accept it?" "I don't know." "Want some unsolicited advice from an old man?" "Sure." "Accept it, not for you, for them, the 11 who can't." He reeled in his empty line, cast it out again. "When I got my silver star, I didn't want it. Felt like it was glorifying the worst day of my life. The day I watched good men die while I somehow survived. I almost threw it away." "What stopped you?" He said something I never forgot. He said those medals aren't about celebrating. They're about remembering. They're physical objects that ensure we don't forget, that future generations don't forget, so I kept it. Not in a display case, just in a drawer, but I kept it. Kira thought about that. "You think the families would want me to accept it?" "I think they'd want their loved ones remembered. If your medal helps ensure that, then yeah, they'd want you to accept it." The sky continued to lighten, gray shifting toward pink, the promise of sunrise. "I'm scared," Kira admitted quietly. "Of what?" "Of being seen, of being real. For 5 years I was invisible, safe in anonymity. If I accept that medal, if I step forward, I lose that protection." "You're not invisible now. You haven't been since the armory. The general made sure of that when he tried to kill you in front of witnesses. The question isn't whether you're visible, it's whether you're going to hide from it or own it." "And if I own it, what then?" Sam smiled. "Then you find out who Kira Vaughn is when she's not running, when she's not hiding, when she's just living." He paused. "That's the scariest thing of all, but also the only thing worth doing." The sun broke the horizon, gold light spilling across the water, transforming everything it touched. They sat together and watched the world wake up. 2 weeks passed in a blur of depositions and interviews and legal consultations. The general's plea offer remained on the table. The prosecutors wanted Kira's input. The families wanted to meet her. The media wanted her story. She said no to the media, yes to the families, postponed the decision on the plea. The meeting with the families happened at a hotel conference room in Arlington, the day before the memorial service. Kira walked in expecting hostility, blame. Why did you survive when they didn't? Instead, she found gratitude. A woman in her 60s stood first, Sarah Martinez. Her son, Staff Sergeant David Martinez, had been Nightfall team lead, call sign Crosswind 1. She hugged Kira, held her for a long moment. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not letting them be forgotten." One by one, the families approached, shook her hand, hugged her. shared stories about their loved ones, showed photos, talked about who they'd been before the mission, before the betrayal, before the graves. A father showed Kira a picture of his daughter, 28 years old, Specialist Emma Carson. She'd loved hiking and terrible puns and rescued 3 dogs from a shelter in North Carolina. She wanted to make a difference, he said, wanted to serve something bigger than herself, and she did, but she deserved better than to die because some general wanted money. Kira's voice cracked. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. You weren't supposed to save her. You were supposed to survive and tell the truth, and you did. He gripped her hand. That took a different kind of courage. Don't apologize for it. By the end of the meeting, Kira had heard 11 stories, 11 lives, 11 people who'd been more than operators, more than call signs, more than casualties. They'd been sons and daughters, parents and siblings, friends and lovers, people with futures that had been stolen. And she'd given them something back, not their lives, but their truth. That night she made her decision about the plea, called the prosecutor. No deal. He goes to trial on all charges. The families deserve to see full accountability. The prosecutor was quiet for a moment. That's going to be harder, longer, more exposure for you. I know, do it anyway. Understood, thank you, Ms. Vaughn. The memorial service at Arlington was small, private, just the families and a handful of officials, no media, no cameras, just remembrance. 11 headstones in a row, fresh flowers on each one. The November air was cold, sharp, honest. A chaplain spoke about service and sacrifice, about honor and duty, about the price of freedom. Then Sarah Martinez stepped forward. I want to read something my son wrote. It's from a letter he sent me a week before nightfall, before he knew what was coming. She unfolded the paper. Her hands shook slightly. Mom, I know you worry about me, about the missions, about the danger, but I want you to understand something. This work matters, not because we're heroes, but because we're willing to stand in the gap, to be the ones who go into darkness so others don't have to. If something happens to me, don't waste time on regret. Just remember that I chose this, and I'd choose it again. Her voice broke on the last words. She folded the letter carefully, placed it on her son's headstone. Others spoke, shared memories, said goodbye in the way you say goodbye when the person has been gone for 5 years but the grief is still fresh. Finally, someone asked Kira if she wanted to speak. She stepped forward, looked at the 11 headstones, at the names carved in marble, at the families standing behind them. I didn't know most of you, she said quietly. I was overwatch, positioned away from the team. We communicated by radio, call signs, mission essential traffic. I knew your voices but not your faces. She paused, gathered herself. For 5 years I carried your deaths, felt responsible, felt like I should have done something differently, should have saved you somehow. And I've learned that responsibility is something I'll carry forever, not because I failed you, but because I survived. And survival comes with obligation. The wind picked up, scattered leaves across the grass. But I want your families to know something. In those last moments when everything went wrong, your loved ones fought, not for medals or recognition. They fought to protect each other, to get each other out. Every radio transmission I heard was someone covering someone else's retreat, someone holding a position so another could escape. That's who they were, not just operators, not just soldiers, heroes in the truest sense. She looked at Sarah Martinez. Your son's last words over the radio were silencer, get out, don't wait for us, complete the mission. He gave me permission to survive, so did the others. They chose to hold so I could run. I need you to know that. They didn't die because I failed. They died because they succeeded in saving one more. Silence fell, heavy, sacred. Then Sarah stepped forward, hugged Kira again, whispered thank you. The service ended with taps, the lonely notes drifting across the cemetery, echoing off marble and memory. As people began to leave, Kira stayed, stood before the 11 stones, 11 names she'd memorized 5 years ago. I did it, she said quietly. I got him, I exposed the truth. I made sure you weren't forgotten. I hope that's enough. I hope you can rest now. A hand touched her shoulder. Ethan Cross stood beside her. He'd come quietly, respectfully, waiting until the families had left. You did good, he said. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does, but it's what we have. They stood together in the November cold, 2 survivors of different battles, both learning how to live with ghosts. I made my decision, Kira said. About the medal, I'm going to accept it, in person, public ceremony. Cross nodded, good. When? Next month, Pentagon. Secretary of Defense is presenting it himself. You scared? Terrified, but I think that's the point, to do it anyway. That's courage, real courage, not the absence of fear, the presence of fear and the choice to move forward anyway. Kira smiled slightly. Your father again. No, that one's mine. They walked back through the cemetery together, past row after row of white stones, each one a story, each one a sacrifice. At the gate, Cross paused. What are you going to do after the ceremony, after the trial? Kira looked back at Arlington, at the 11 stones she'd just left, at the weight she'd carried for 5 years that felt, for the first time, like it might be okay to set down. I'm going to build a boat, she said. Cross laughed. Sam got to you. He made a good point, about doing something that doesn't matter, something that isn't life or death. I think I need that. Will it sink like his did? Probably, but that's not really the point, is it? No, I guess it's not. They parted ways, Cross back to Coronado, back to his command and his responsibilities, Kira to her apartment, to the life she was slowly learning to build. That night she opened her laptop one last time. The CIA email still sat there, unanswered. She typed her final response. Thank you for the offer. I'm honored, but I need to step away for a while, to figure out who I am when I'm not operating. Maybe someday I'll be ready to come back, to help others walk this path, but not yet. For now, I need to learn how to just be. The reply came in minutes. Understood, the door stays open, whenever you're ready. She closed the laptop, stood, walked to the window. The city lights spread out below, thousands of lives, thousands of stories, each one mattering in ways big and small. She was one of them now, not a ghost, not a mission, just a person trying to figure out what came next. And for the first time in 5 years, that felt like enough. The ceremony at the Pentagon was exactly as uncomfortable as she'd expected. Cameras, officials, speeches about service and sacrifice. The Secretary of Defense pinned the medal to her chest while photographers captured the moment for history. She stood at attention, accepted the honor, thought about the 11 who should have been standing there instead. Afterward, reporters wanted interviews. She declined, quietly, politely, firmly. But she did agree to one thing, a video message, recorded in private, to be shared with military members and veterans. She sat in front of the camera and spoke from the heart. My name is Kira Vaughn. For 5 years I was dead, listed as killed in action, living under a false identity, hiding from a truth I couldn't prove. Today, I stand here alive because of people who believed me when belief was dangerous, who helped me when helping could have destroyed them, who chose truth over convenience. She paused, gathered her thoughts. I'm accepting this medal not for myself, but for 11 operators who died because someone they trusted betrayed them. Their names are carved at Arlington. Their families are living with loss that should never have happened. This medal represents their service, their sacrifice, and the promise that we will never forget them. She looked directly at the camera. If you're serving right now, know this. The vast majority of leaders are honorable. They'll keep faith with you. They'll protect you. They'll bring you home. But if you ever encounter someone who doesn't, someone who puts profit over people or ego over ethics, speak up. Tell the truth, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because silence protects the guilty and dishonors the innocent. She took a breath. And if you're a veteran struggling with what you've seen or what you've lost, know that you're not alone. The weight you carry is real. The pain is valid, but survival isn't something you have to earn. You already earned it by making it this far. Now the work is learning to live, not just exist. Live, that's the harder mission. The one without clear objectives or defined endpoints, but it's worth it. I promise you it's worth it. The video ended. Was posted to DoD channels. Within 24 hours, it had 3 million views. Within a week, 20 million. Messages poured in, veterans sharing their stories, active duty members saying thank you, families of the fallen expressing gratitude. Kiera read some of them, not all, just enough to understand that her story had mattered, that stepping forward had been the right choice. 6 months after the ceremony, General Vincent Cross's trial concluded, guilty on all counts, life in prison without possibility of parole. The verdict was read in a packed courtroom. Kiera wasn't there, didn't need to be. The outcome was justice. Present or absent, it remained true. She was in Montana when she got the news. Small town near Glacier National Park. She'd rented a workshop. Bought plans for a sailboat, something simple, a 14-footer, beginner level. She had no idea what she was doing. The wood didn't fit right. The measurements were confusing. Everything took 3 times longer than the instructions suggested. It was perfect. She worked in the mornings, walked in the afternoons, read in the evenings, slowly, deliberately, building a life that had nothing to do with missions or operators or betrayal. Sam visited once, looked at her boat in progress, laughed at the crooked planks. It's going to sink. I know. Good, that's how you know you're doing it right. Ethan Cross sent messages occasionally, updates on the base, news about the SEAL teams, normal things. He never asked when she was coming back. Seemed to understand she might never. Dr. Fisher and she spoke monthly, sometimes about trauma, sometimes about boats, sometimes about nothing in particular, just connection, presence. And slowly, month by month, Kiera began to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain. Pain was still there, probably always would be, but peace despite the pain. Peace alongside it, the ability to hold both grief and joy, both memory and hope. 1 year after the Pentagon ceremony, she finished the boat, launched it in a small lake outside town. It floated, barely, listed slightly to port, but it floated. She sailed it around the lake once, felt the wind catch the sail, felt the water move beneath her, felt alive in a way that had nothing to do with survival. When she came back to shore, she sat on the dock and called Sam. It didn't sink, she said. Well, that's disappointing. What are you going to do now? Build another one, bigger this time. That's the spirit. She hung up, sat watching the sun set over the mountains. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, colors she'd stopped noticing during the years of running, colors that mattered again. Her phone buzzed, email from the DDO at CIA. Subject: no pressure, just information. Ms. Vaughn, the offer stands, but I wanted you to know we've developed a new program, helping operators transition out of active service, teaching them skills for civilian life, providing resources for trauma recovery. We need someone to run it, someone who's walked the path. No obligation, just wanted you to know it exists, if you're ever interested. Kira read it twice, felt something stir, not urgency, just possibility. She didn't respond immediately, saved it to drafts, thought about it. Maybe someday, when the boat building wasn't enough anymore, when peace felt less fragile, when she was ready to help others find what she'd found. But not yet. For now, she had mountains to climb and lakes to sail, and a life to build that belonged to her alone. She stood, walked back toward town. The lights were coming on, warm, welcoming, the kind of light that meant home. She'd been dead for 5 years, alive for one, learning to live for every day that came after. It wasn't the ending she'd imagined, but it was real, it was earned, it was hers. And in the end, that was enough. Some heroes retire. Some reload. And some learn that the bravest thing of all is choosing to live when survival was never guaranteed. Kira Vaughn had been the silencer, had been the ghost, had been the last one standing. Now she was just herself. And for the first time in as long as she could remember, that was exactly who she wanted to be.